Monday. Once had a teacher, and millions of people used to turn up for his birthday in India and offering all sorts of gifts. And he tried to convince us to treat every day as though it was special, to step outside of time, to allow every day to be a new beginning. Let's do that now, shall we? Let's do that now. Let's release all of our old practices. Let's release everything that happened over the weekend. Let's release everything that happened today. And just spend this hour that we have together arriving into the present moment, which really means this very same teacher, the way in which he defined meditation, was being in a space where there is unity between mind, body, and if we're speaking, words, mind, body, and speech. And if we're doing something, mind, body, and action. As you hear these words, are you starting to get glimpses into the different parts there are to you, to me? The mind is one part. And by just simply noticing where the mind is, we will begin to recognize many of its qualities, which is really what we'll be doing during this practice, observing the mind, recognizing its qualities, recognizing its behavior, its movements. I can hear a naughty little cat meowing outside the door. She's going to join us in the practice. Okay, come on. Okay. Let's say hello to everybody. And there you have it, the cat's version of an ohm. We want this meditation practice to be a reflection of our real lives, and therefore there will be interruptions, there will be movements, whether in my side of the screen or on your side of the screen. But that is a reflection of life, isn't it? Movement, variables we often are unable to control. And so in my world, there was a cat meowing outside the door, whom I brought into the room. In your world, there may be crying babies, there may be cars beeping outside your window, there may be mobile phones going off. But a practice such as this awards us the gift of observing the way in which our mind reacts to this present moment. For example, the cat, the crying baby, the phone going off. But we remind ourselves that this is what the practice called mindfulness is all about. It's not about hiding in some cave or forest, because many people have tried doing it, and myself included. I have ran away to ashrams, I have locked myself up in monasteries before. But one thing you begin to realize is that you take your mind with you, and along with your mind, you bring its patterns, its habits, its reactions. But this practice is not about forcing our minds to go still and quiet. Because when it does go still and quiet, which it often does, especially in a practice such as this, we define it as a good meditation. And when it is turbulent, especially after an argument or something, an unexpected bill that you received earlier on today, then it might be turbulent, it might be moving. If you've got a busy schedule up ahead of you today, this evening, you will find turbulence. But in this practice, we simply allow the stillness, allow the turbulence, recognizing the stillness to be the point between the turbulence, recognizing the turbulence to be the point between the stillness. Not, as the Buddhists say, attaching ourselves to the stillness and therefore fighting the turbulence, but simply allowing it all. Let's ring the bell now, shall we? To begin this practice of allowing. I give my mind permission to move. I give my mind permission to be still. I allow the sounds around me to be exactly as they are, to arise and disappear, to arise from the silence and then disappear back into the silence. Just as my thoughts. I allow the different sensations that arise within my body. I allow myself to smile. I allow myself to be at ease. I allow myself to release everything that has been said, done, or experienced prior to the ringing of this bell. So that I may arrive onto this chair, these seats, so much lighter, free of the baggage which I have carried about with me, stories, memories, plans, worries, concerns. All a part of the story that I carry within my mind, which, as I observe it, as we observe our minds, it dawns on us that almost everything we see within the mind exists within that concept called time, either from the past or the future. Very often, comparing the present moment to that past. It might be a previous practice where things were so much more quieter within the mind. Or it might have been a different practice when your environment was so much more pleasing and comfortable. And so every complaint that you find arising about this present moment is simply because of that comparison. And if we were to release the past, and if we were to release the future, we would find ourselves having little or nothing to compare the present moment against. Suddenly, the traffic outside the window, the honking, the loud voices, they appear to take the form of perfection. Every sensation arising within and around our bodies remain as sensations, no longer progressing into pain or discomfort, having released the need to compare these sensations against other sensations or the absence of such sensations. Yesterday, when I met in the temple, one of the participants in the meditation told me after the practice that they were very used to silent meditations. And even though they enjoyed the guided meditation, how could they find a balance between a guided meditation and a silent meditation? And this may apply to many of you. You have your own practice. You know how to practice. You know how to find alignment and unity between your mind and body. Sometimes it happens with the sunset, sometimes with that incredible piece of chocolate or warm shower. But the way in which you have the ability to turn this practice into a silent meditation, even with your speakers unmuted, with me continuing to talk and guide in this way. And how do we do this? Can you notice that my words only make sense because gaps appear sometimes within a word, and sometimes, and more often, in between words, there are gaps, spaces, silence. In this practice, all the voice is directing us towards is this silence, this space. And so it is a practice in shifting our focus from the sound of the voice to the gaps of silence in between the sounds. A practice in shifting our focus from the sound of the voice and the bell to the silence behind these sounds, from which these sounds arise. And in many ways, this can represent every aspect of this practice. We all find ourselves practicing in rooms, in some part of a building. Have you noticed how we define these rooms through the furniture that we see and the number of walls there are and the flooring and the artwork on the walls? How easy it is to notice form. How easy it is to notice sound, which is form. This is a practice where we begin shifting our focus to the very space contained within and behind these walls. That very reason these walls were erected, these homes built, this very space that nourishes and feeds our bodies through the breath that flows into our lungs and then through our bodies, through our blood cells, reaching every cell of our body, finally released so much warmer, more humid. A deep and profound part of our experience of this moment called the present moment discover how precious this space is. With every breath that enters and leaves your body, how this very space that we breathe in also contains atoms and molecules, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide, and so many others, which exist but simply do not reflect light the way these walls and pieces of furniture and art around us do. Appreciating this space, appreciating the silence in between every sound, be it the sound of my voice or the bell, be it the sound of the crying baby or the barking dog. Appreciating that silence that allows us to hear every single one of these sounds. As we breathe in and out, do not expect your mind to be aligned with your body all of the time. If it happens, it's a good thing. And if it doesn't, it's also a good thing. Because either way, you can simply be aware of where the mind is, either aligned into this present moment or not. That could possibly be the only relevant observation. Releasing every thought that arises, knowing that it is not fact, because the only fact is the fact that you are seated on this chair or cushion. The only fact is that you are breathing. The only fact is that from this present moment, you are thinking about the past or thinking about the future. And so all you need to do is to label the thought as a thought, no longer seeing it as fact, but simply as a passing thought. And if you like to play games, thought bubbles, turn them into thought bubbles. A little bit, exactly like soap bubbles floating about. Your awareness being the very needle that pops them. Bringing you back into the present moment. Each time you find yourself being carried away. Very briefly reminding yourself that when you do discover yourself being carried away by the mind, which will surely happen, you can always bring yourself back by accessing your 5 doorways into the present moment. And those who have practiced here before, know that I refer to the 5 senses. One of them being the sense of touch, which envelops the whole body, through which you feel the chairs and the cushions underneath you, and the clothing, and the warm layer of air trapped underneath the fabric of your clothing. And it goes on and on. The stillness or the subtle movements in the air around you as it brushes against your skin. Your breath, that one part where you will almost certainly feel and experience movement. Air molecules interacting with the sensitive cells within your nasal passage and your upper lip. Bring your attention, your full attention to your breath now. And reminding yourself that there's always only one breath that you're interested in. And that is this breath, the one that's either flowing in or out at this moment. Never needing to beat yourself up or criticize yourself if you lost the last breath, if you lost the last 10, even 100 breaths, because there is no such thing as lost in this practice. Because you have found this breath, the only breath that matters. And so every intake of breath becomes the only breath, the first breath. Every exhalation in the same way represents the only release and letting go. So that your breath itself becomes like a circle, leading you back into the present moment. From moment to moment and breath to breath. Always back, always arriving, always here. I'm going to ring the bell now. Just an opportunity to stretch your bodies, to move your bodies, to even find a new posture if that's something you'd like to do. Or even have a sip of water. And now in this part of the practice, once you settle down, once you settle back into a comfortable posture, if that's something that you changed, use the faculty of visualizing within the mind to visualize. We'll call this the tree meditation. And so visualize within your mind's eye a tree. Perhaps something you've seen quite recently when you walked through a park or when you looked out of your window. Or perhaps something conjured up through your imagination. But let it be a tree with many, many branches. One that's been here for a very long time, which also means roots that dig deep into the earth. Mother Earth. The earth that is the very source of our existence. In this practice, start releasing all images that you have of your form so that you begin to merge into this image you have of the tree. Your arms becoming perhaps two of the main branches of this tree. Your neck, your head, your hair with its ears and its nose and its eyebrows and eyelids, all becoming different parts of this tree, branches. And now let us find our connection to this earth. Because so often we find many laws, much legislation telling us how to treat the earth, what we should do, how to recycle, what to use, what not to use. Mental exercises, many of them mental exercises. Now, let us move beyond these mental exercises and experience this unity, this coexistence that we share with this planet. And it simply begins by releasing our forms and tapping into, let's start with our beating hearts or any signs of life that you can detect within your bodies. Its breathing process, its digestive process, the sensations that you can experience that remind you that you are alive, releasing the definitions of whether the sensation is interpreted to be comfortable or uncomfortable, just seeing them all as signs of yourself, of myself being alive, seated here, breathing. And if we were to look at the digestive process, it's probably around the stomach area. Of course, it starts all the way with the saliva within the mouth, but much of it takes place within the stomach area, the trunk of our body. Visualize that space that you breathe in, traveling through your nostrils, down your chest, and all the way down into the stomach, pushing the stomach wall up as you breathe in, and allowing the stomach wall to fall as you exhale and breathe out. Allowing this to be the center of this tree, this being of awareness that you're beginning to tap into. Breathing in and tuning into the stretch of the stomach wall, the ballooning of the insides, the digestive process that are all indicators and reminders of this life, this process called life, the play of different chemicals. Within the body, the extraction of oxygen into the bloodstream, the releasing of carbon dioxide. And with the next breath, not stopping at the stomach, but allowing your center of gravity to move and merge into the earth, the flooring first, and then the earth underneath you. Breathing in as deeply as you can, and visualizing this space that you breathe in as light, moving deep into the roots that make their way deeper and deeper and deeper into the crust of the earth, through the mineral kingdom, through the vegetation, stabilizing, anchoring. Every breath that is released, supporting the environment, the oxygen, feeding all manner of life, the oxygen released by the leaves on our branches, the carbon dioxide absorbed into these leaves, bringing balance to the space and the environment above the surface of the planet. Each intake of breath, finding a new root that grows deeper and deeper, rooting us more deeply than ever before into this moment called the present moment. And it is now that we have the opportunity to explore our relationship with our mind, which we experience as the changing light patterns around us, where day turns into night, and night back into day, unaffected. As these days turn into weeks and weeks, into months and months, into seasons, currently obviously in winter. Winters turning into springs, that is if you're in the northern hemisphere. Springs into summers, and summers into autumns, and the changes. The constant changes unfolding around us. The breeze, the winds, and sometimes the storms. Experiencing these storms, experiencing these winds and these gentle breeze. From this space of stability called the present moment. Smiling as we recognize them, as we would the stories that pass through our experience, as we observed our minds. Occasionally, even swaying to these winds, occasionally even dancing to the storms, to the movement, to the changes. Every branch in a state of allowing, no longer resisting the present moment. We've tried that. We've tried wanting things to be different from the way they are. The very want that brought us into practices such as this, where we learn allowing, making peace with the present moment. As we watch the winds, as we watch the movement, as we watch the storms, it's not easy making peace with a turbulent mind. But we try. We recognize how it is this mind that brought us to practices such as this. Where it discovered how to use tools such as Google and computers. It discovered the possibility of space within form, silence between sound, and guided us and brought us. This very mind that finds solutions to many of the obstacles we often face. We thank the mind. Having learned this language that allows us to communicate together in this way, despite being from different parts of the world, growing up in different places, going to different schools. This is how we make peace with the mind. We recognize it and appreciate it for all that it has done for us. But with a further realization that from this point onwards, we recognize it to be the tool it was always meant to be, so that we may choose which thoughts to focus on and which ones to release, which ones serve us and which ones do not. Just sitting, breathing, swaying, dancing. But very often at this stage, you will begin to recognize not all of the branches dance, not all of the branches sway. Some have dried up, some have become stiff. Some have turned into burdens that no longer serve us. And it is during these storms, during the pain, during the turbulence, that we will notice cracks appearing on these branches. Those branches that contain many of the habits that we have started to recognize as no longer serving us. And we watch, we smile as the cracks get bigger and bigger, and these branches simply drop back onto the earth, becoming fertilizer, food for the termites and the bugs. But the self, the witnessing self, now in a deeper state of allowing, more at peace with the present moment, in stillness, in kindness, and in wisdom. So that there is clarity, because there is always a next step. There is always a next step. Sometimes it's an action, and sometimes it's an omission, and sometimes it's just a practice like this. Where this next step is taken free of fear, in greater clarity, where this next step is taken free of anger, in far greater clarity. And where all the anger, stress, frustrations, and worries have been released, where the branches simply dance, where the branches allow the winds of change, where the branches allow life to unfold. The body balances itself. The immune system, it begins to rise. Like a balloon that for many, many years has been held deep under a body of water. Feeling very unnatural, very tight, very slippery. But now with the ringing of this bell, released so that it may rise, gravitate upward, finally reaching the surface where it dances just like the branches as the breeze brushes against it, whether gentle or strong, allowing, existing in a space of pure kindness, free of expectation, of pure wisdom, seeing from every perspective, listening from every voice, understanding every moment to be a stepping stone, in a journey where there is no final destination, reminding us to appreciate every breath, every moment, every interaction, every touch, every smell, every taste, free of the filters from the past, free of the filters from the future, with curiosity, with interest, with the smiles and the laughter of that child deep within us that begins to resurface as we release years, as we release projections into the future. The next intake of breath representing a new beginning, a new birth, a new start. And the final bell, which in this practice we have come to call the beginning of the true practice, of the real practice, where we bring this kindness, this wisdom, this presence with us as we move from moment to moment and breath to breath. Thank you all for joining this practice. It's always a very special experience to step into the present moment together. And so I thank every single one of you for joining in. Thank you.
Thank you, Vinod. Thank you.
It's a
Bye.
pleasure. Bye-bye, everybody. Have a lovely,
Take
lovely
care.
evening.
Bye now.
Take care. Thank you for joining again. Bye-bye.